recording this session. So again, as Dr. Brulles said, welcome to the PVSchools Gifted Parent Seminar. This is first of several seminars we're going to have both in October and November. Tonight's program is on the PV self-contained gifted programs in our elementary schools. And I'm Melissa Schwartz. I'm the gifted chair for the Paradise Valley United Parent Council, a group of parents that work across the district to provide programming for parents and address activities. And we work on many of the panels that the district provides to allow parent input. So you'll see a lot of things that will say United Parent Council, and that's referring to this organization. If you think about your PTO groups at your schools, they send representatives from each individual school to the United Parent Council. As I said, this is one of several gifted programs we're going to be doing in October. Next week, we will be doing the Digital Learning Center, which is one of the middle school gifted programs. The following week, the Journey, which is another middle school gifted program offered in Paradise Valley Schools. And then our United Parent Council event for this month, we have meetings every month. This month is talking about how to be an education voter. Please join us. Due to the virtual format, we have switched our meetings to the afternoon or late afternoon. We have a brief meeting and then we have a presentation. So you're welcome to join us for all of that. And Dina, if you'll go to the next slide, we'll talk about just a little bit of housekeeping here. And let me admit some folks in just to make sure they're not missing the rest of this. So we are recording this presentation and want to make sure everybody knows that. That is why we actually have muted everyone. It's not to be rude, but we want to make sure that we are keeping confidential names so that nobody asks a question that we don't want to have on that recording. So if you will turn off your video, that way the presenters will be visible to all during the presentation. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. And we will try to get to as many questions as we can at the end. Again, please make them generic. If you have personal questions, Dr. Brulles will talk about how you can reach out to the gifted department and get those questions answered directly, but that way it's not recorded and repeated for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Some of our videos have been up for quite a while, so that's why we're just asking about that. Again, I was not able to put this on our Facebook, but we are able to put it onto our UPC YouTube channel, which is actually called PVUPC, and you can find it very easily on YouTube. So thank you and enjoy. I'm going to actually go off my video and you guys enjoy the presentation. I'll be back as we ask questions later on.
And as a reminder, questions that come up along the way this evening, go ahead and chat and put them into chat, and Melissa will sift through them. And at the end, we will be able to answer some of those questions. If we don't get all of your questions answered, or you do have questions that are really on a more personal nature, I want to introduce to you my staff, and at the very end of the presentation, I will be sharing with you their contact information. So like I said, for those of you who just logged on, I am Dina Brulles, the Director of Gifted Education for Paradise Valley School District, and I think I'm starting my 16th year. And I was mentioning before, we've seen a lot of growth, a lot of changes, and that's the beauty of our programming, that we are very responsive to parent need and different situations that come along. So we are continually changing, updating, enhancing, improving our gifted services from year to year. And your input helps guide that. So your input through the UPC gifted liaison, Melissa Schwartz, is always appreciated. Melissa also holds some meetings with gifted parents. Where's another time that you can share some of your ideas and your input that help us frame how we offer our gifted services. Next on the list, you'll see the name Elizabeth Warner. She's going to be, she's with us tonight, and she is our gifted program mentor. And Elizabeth oversees all of our curriculum and instruction and our professional development for our teachers. So she is that go-to person that our teachers rely on for their training, resources, material, direction, and instructional guidance. So you might see her throughout the schools and throughout some of your children's learning experiences here. We also have Emily Skelton, who is our gifted cluster coach. Now, while this presentation is about the self-contained gifted program, I am going to briefly overview some of the other programs. And Emily is our new mentor coach for the gifted cluster model. Some of your kids might be end up going into clusters, some might go into self-contained. And I want to let you know that we have extensive support for both of those programs. We also have our Dina Sharverdian. She is our gifted data technician. So if you've ever called my office asking for information on your children's test scores or when we are going to be testing or sending us information about test scores from another district out of state, she is the one that you'll be reaching out for that purpose. And Phaedria Begay is my administrative assistant. Phaedria is amazing as well. She is there to answer questions that parents have on a daily basis. So Phaedria will be the one that you primarily answers the phone in the office and will direct you to either Deanna for information and testing, or myself for programming, or Elizabeth for some of the support. Then we have a slew of wonderful gifted testers that help us make sure that we get as much to get our kids tested throughout the district. And I know that that's a really challenging dilemma that we've been facing since this spring when we've not been able to test face-to-face. But later on in the presentation, I'm going to go over some of the testing arrangements and protocol that we've got scheduled. So as I was saying, here's our presentation for tonight. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the gifted services in PVSchools. And that's because sometimes people will come to the self-contained program thinking that is our gifted program. That's one of our gifted programs. And I'm going to explain to you as we move through the presentation, just why and when somebody might need a gifted self-contained program as opposed to one of the other elementary programs. Hopefully Elizabeth will talk a little bit about the curriculum and instruction in the self-contained gifted program. And then we will close off by talking about the application process, which Deanna and Phaedria helped share information along those lines. So program options. We have a number of programming options in PV, and that is because we really truly believe that there is no single best way to develop gifted programs. Think about all the wide range of needs of gifted students. So we'd like to be responsive and to those needs and modify and enhance and increase our programs as we see the need for them. So you're going to see in PV that we have a continuum of services, providing comprehensive gifted services to whatever level of need your child has. And that might be from twice exceptional to English language learners to highly profoundly gifted, or to the average gifted child. So I'm going to give you a very brief snippet at those. And starting off with our gifted preschool, Melissa was mentioning that we have some of the parent nights coming up. We will have one just for the gifted preschool and the early childhood programs. And that's going to be coming up, I believe, in November, December. The regular gifted programs we have on every single campus is this cluster grouping model. And we have that K4 in every school, K6 in many of the schools, but every elementary school in our district has that. That's our go-to model, where the students, once they're identified, they are automatically placed. And then when they get into grades 4 through 6, they will join into our content replacement. So these two programs are at every single one of our schools, and they don't need an application process for it. The early childhood programs do need an application, require an application process. And I'm going to share some of that information at the end of this presentation when we talk about the applications. But how the cluster model and the content replacement, which is also called honors classes, those are the two that do not need any special application. Once your child gets on our gifted roster, they are automatically placed into those programs. Today, we're really going to be talking about the self-contained gifted program. And what you'll see there is that it's for highly gifted students. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means, but that is located at 5 of our sites. And we'll go over those in more detail, but it really is for the gifted students who need more rigorous, more fast-paced than our regular gifted program. So it really does represent a small percentage of our gifted students, but it's important for those kids who need that. And I always say it's a miserable experience for the kids who don't need it, because the kids who don't need that that level of rigor are going to do better in our regular gifted programs. I'm going to give you some information on how to tell the difference between that. Then we have our 2 self-contained middle school programs, which I'm super excited about. These are the Journey and the Digital Learning Center. And these 2 also require application processes. Many of our self-contained gifted students, most of them, go into these 2 programs. Journey is our new one that's opened, just recently opened at Mount Trails Middle School. And the Digital Learning Center, the DLC, is the program that's going to be highlighted next week from the staff at the DLC. And that one is located at Sunrise Middle School. So we do have self-contained at both ends, different parts of our district. We have the Honors Academies for Pre-Engineering and Foreign Language, and that's at Desert Shadows Middle School. That is not run through the gifted office, but rather it's the applications go through Desert Shadows Middle School. So if you're interested in that, or if that's your home school and you want to see what that looks like, go to the Desert Shadows Middle School website and look at their application process there. Now, we also have honors classes and AP classes in all of our middle schools and high schools. And those, we have the full spectrum, which not all districts have. Then for high school, we have a couple special different programs. We have the Digital Academy for AP Scholars, which is also called DAPS and as an acronym, and that's located at Shadow Mountain High School. Fantastic program, as is the International Baccalaureate program, which is located at North Canyon High School, with the middle years program leading up to that, which is at Vista Verde. CREST is our Center for Research, Engineering, Science, and Technology. And these 3 programs, DAPS, IB, and CREST, do not require a gifted endorsement, but a gifted identification, but the vast majority of the students in those programs are identified as gifted, had gone through our other gifted programs, and are ready for the level of rigor that those programs represent. We also have online honors classes at all different levels. So if your child is one of those that needs to be online, we do have options for that as well. It's not a gifted program per se, but there are honors classes available. And then we have some after-school enrichment classes throughout the district, and those are established and put on by the schools. So you'd want to look at the school's websites to see what type of after-school enrichment classes that they have. So that was, like I said, a brief overview of all of our programs. But when we talk about gifted programs, what does it even mean? Why do we even need these? When we talk about gifted programs, we're talking about gifted students that have, and we're talking about the identification really speaks to general ability. And it's what allows students, children, people to think, process information, see problems, understand, make connections between ideas, and have insights. And this really pertains to everything that they're learning. So we know when students learn differently by making some of these connections and solving problems in different ways, that there might have different levels of need. And that's, once again, why we have the different levels of program. When we talk about the self-contained gifted program, this is the controversial bell curve. And right here is what we call average. And when we talk about general ability, this is what it means. G is general ability. And here is what we consider to be average students. Here's what we're going to consider to be above average. And here's where we're going to consider to be gifted on this side of the spectrum. So it's basically 2 to 3 standard deviations from the norm is where we're going to find our gifted students. And there's a few over here that are going to be highly and profoundly gifted students. And these students for sure will need something like a self-contained gifted program. So if your child is a very high IQ and is radically accelerated with their learning processes, then they're going to want to take a look at our self-contained gifted program. One of the things that I'd like to point out here is that the further you are removed from the norm in either direction of this bell curve, it stands to reason that you're going to have some different social and emotional needs that are just like you're going to have different academic needs the further you move away from the norm. Our teachers are very highly trained in working with gifted students' social and emotional needs. And that is because we know that if a child feels accepted, understood for who they are, how they think, how they perceive the world, how they manipulate information and make sense of the world, they're going to have different social and emotional needs. And this is not good or bad or indifferent. It's just part of who they are as gifted children. And so that's where we really emphasize a lot of that in our professional learning that we offer for our teachers. So that's what a gifted is in a nutshell. So why do they need anything different? What are the learning needs of these gifted students? I like to tell parents that gifted students need what all students need. Consistent opportunities to learn new material, make academic growth every year they're in school, every month, every week. And that means that they need opportunities to engage in intellectually challenging, stimulating opportunities grouped with other gifted students who are working at those levels. That's part of the reason that we do have the gift programs, so we can group the students together with others who have similar needs, and it just eases the teacher's ability to reach out to meet those needs. So when we talk about effective gifted programs, this is pertinent to all of our gifted programs, whether it be clustering, content replacement, the DLC, self-contained. But I want to talk about this in the context of our self-contained gifted programs. A flexible grouping. We know that even though a child qualifies for a self-contained gifted program, they're going to have different strengths. So the teachers are going to create different flexible groups, opportunities for the students to work within their classrooms based on where they're at, their certain curriculum, their interests, their level of readiness, their learning styles, those types of things. So there's a lot of collaboration, interaction, and yes, we have to be careful with that. Different now that during COVID, but we do recognize that these students do need opportunities to work with intellectual peers, which is another criteria for effective gifted programs, and that's why we also group these students into programs with similar kids of similar needs, so that the teacher can differentiate the curriculum and the instruction in those programs, depending on what those needs are. We firmly believe that kids need to make continuous progress in their learning. And unless we teach our teachers how to use formative testing, which means ongoing diagnostic testing to see what they already know, we're not going to know where to challenge them. So our teachers do a lot of pre-testing formative assessments to figure out where the kids are with their learning process in relationship to what they're going to be teaching. So they can compact out of that curriculum and move them into an area where they're going to be their learning is going to be more addressed. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Gifted programs, we know that continuity is really important. And by that, I mean that gifted education does not start in 4th grade when your child gets identified. A lot of school districts around the state and country actually have gifted programs that start in 3rd or 4th grade. Ours start in preschool because you, as parents, recognize that your gifted children learn differently and they learn a lot faster, more quickly and earlier than a lot of other students. So it's really important that we give them that opportunity whenever we recognize that they have different learning needs that are more accelerated, that we have a place for them. None of these are going to work. No gifted program is going to work well unless we have teachers with specialized education And we work very, very hard at providing consistent opportunities for them, for the teachers to engage in professional learning. And Elizabeth will speak a little bit more to that a little bit later in the presentation, but also if you're interested in seeing what kind of the professional learning opportunities we provide for our teachers, please go onto our PVSchools gifted website and look at the section that's the link that says teacher resources. And there you'll be able to see some of the trainings that we provide. So the self-contained gifted program is currently located at 5 sites, like I mentioned at the beginning: Desert Cove, Sonoran Sky, North Ranch, Fireside, and Desert Trails. And this, as mentioned, is designed to serve highly and profoundly gifted children who are radically accelerated in the core content. Not all gifted students need this. Not all highly gifted students are accelerated. So, like I mentioned before, this is ideal for those students who may not have been challenged in a regular gifted program before, need something a little bit more accelerated, more rigorous, more where they can dive more deeply into some of their learning. A lot of it is interdisciplinary, which means they do a lot of projects, a lot of project-based learning. Elizabeth, once again, is going to be talking a little bit more of our curriculum and instruction and talking about what that looks like. But quite basically, the kids are working at approximately 2 grade levels beyond their grade level when they're in this program. If they do not need that radical acceleration, then we were going to want to place them in our regular gifted program, where the kids learn at approximately 1 year at advance, sometimes up to 2, but at the self-contained, it's really expected that they are working at 2 grade levels beyond. The curriculum, for example, that we provide for a 1st grade classroom is going to be looking at 3rd grade material, 3rd grade standards and core content. Since you're not able to come and take a peek into our gifted classrooms, which is what we do during our tours, I thought I would bring a few of those sites to you. And what we have here is a demonstration where I just mentioned that they do a lot of projects, project-based learning, problem-based learning. And so they go into character a lot of times, like you'll see here. They give presentations, they work and they collaborate a lot, work with groups, small groups, independent, and with buddies and pairs, and even across different programs at grade levels. Very interactive, very hands-on. Because we know that they really love to explore, dive deeply into whatever they are learning at the time. So here's a couple more examples of what the typical classroom activity presentation day might look like in these programs. I am going to be uploading additional photos to our website, to the link there, the self-contained, just to give you our teachers sent us dozens of pictures, but to give you some more ideas, concrete ideas of what some of that looks like. So I'm going to see if Elizabeth is able to join us. And we were having a little bit of difficulty with sound earlier, so I might.
We got her back on here. Let's see if she's able to unmute. Her internet is out where she is there. She's unmuted. Are you available there, Elizabeth?
I am.
Well, Elizabeth can jump in whenever she can.
So
We are not hearing you, Elizabeth. I'm just giving her another minute to see if we could get the sound in, but I'll just let Elizabeth jump on whenever she is able to. So what you'll see at the top here is some of the foundations of how that we work with self-contained gifted, and then we've got it broken down by some of the curriculum by grade level. So I mentioned before the project-based and problem-based learning, and what that looks like is that students will identify something that they want to figure out, learn more about, solve, and they'll create a learning pathway, a project to basically help develop that understanding through research and through interdisciplinary. And by that we mean if this project, say for example, the project is looking at a cause of earthquakes, we're going to bring in math and science, we're going to bring in reading, we're going to bring in writing, we're going to bring it into a whole project where the students will look at things very holistically. Our vocabulary instruction, and this is basic to all of our different grade levels. It's a Latin-based vocabulary. We use a lot of Michael Clay Thompson's material, so you might want to take a look at that. An overview for this is and will be on our website as well, so you can just get some ideas. We use a lot of technology integration because we know that that's how students can explore and learn and bring all these neat ideas together. And we look at a lot of questioning techniques, Socratic seminar, shared inquiry, and elements of reasoning. These are all some of the basic standard processes that we use, that are used in gifted education and how gifted kids learn. So we pretty much embed these into all of the learning instructional approaches that we use in our self-contained. And I'm not going to go through all of the specifics, but I wanted to give you an idea. Once again, the preschool one, we'll talk about that when we have our early childhood night. But just to give you some idea of some of the curriculum, and like I said, you'll see that some of these levels are grade levels, and some of them are going to, and they're going to be working above grade level in most cases. Some of the new math that we have spirals in, and so we'll just take some of it at grade level or one grade level beyond and go and extend that very much more deeply. We use the William and Mary curriculum throughout our self-contained, and that is an established gifted ed curriculum out of the College of William and Mary. We've had researchers and trainers work with our teachers for 3 years, and they come actually and model and look into, they've spent a lot of time with us. So our teachers, for the most part, have a very good foundation of that. And just to give you a couple ideas of some of the science and social studies concepts that we've added. And then for the math, these are some of the areas how we expand on our regular math curriculum, using Khan Academy, using problem solving, logic, and coding. And those are just some examples for the first grade. Those examples, though, for math really carry out throughout. And so here's a couple other different grade levels, second and third grade. Once again, Elizabeth included some of the topics that we addressed during for the social studies and science, and a lot of what, if you see something different here, you'll see junior great books. That's something we bring in along with the College of William and Mary curriculum, the Michael Clay Thompson 4-level of grammar, and the Wordly Wise, which is also Michael Clay Thompson. You can see that that's also quite accelerated. The kids love that type of curriculum. It's very exciting for them. And then the 4th and 5th grade, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about how this is structured in a second, but I just wanted to give you some ideas of some of the different, you'll see some of the curriculum is the same, but at different grade levels, and then some of the topics that our teachers use. And some of these here are part of the, for example, the William and Mary curriculum. And then 6th grade as well. So some of you might be wondering, well, my child is in a 1-2 class or a 3-4 class or a 5-6 class. How does this curriculum hold together for that? So what we do is the teachers, and some of our schools are all multi-age. For example, Desert Trails is multi-age, has a 1-2, a 3-4, and a 5-6. North Ranch has a 1-2, a 3-4, and a 5-6. The other schools are going to, Fireside has a 1 per grade level, but then Sonoran Sky this year will have a 1-2 class. So we're very flexible, but depending on the numbers. So some years we will separate out if we have too many for one classroom, for one grade level. And sometimes if we have too many, we will separate them out. And if we don't have enough, we will combine them. And this allows us to be able to serve more of your children, to bring in more of your kids. But quite honestly, the self-contained gifted programs throughout the country are typically multi-grade level combo classes. And I know this because I work very closely with a lot of schools around the country. I'm on the board of directors for the National Association for Gifted Children. I was the school district rep for 6 years, and now I'm governance secretary. And what's this allowed me to do is really get to know very well how some of the other school districts around the country are providing their services. I interact with a lot of different coordinators, so we get to share ideas and learn from each other. So what we've done with a lot of this curriculum is really bring the best of the best that we've been able to find throughout the country to you. And it does vary, and it should vary as far as bringing in new material, trying new approaches and new strategies as they evolve and come out. I also teach gifted education program for the graduate master's program at Arizona State University. So I'm able to get a look at some of the different instructional methods, strategies, resources that are out there. And so we're constantly enhancing, improving, and bringing in new ideas. So what I wanted to share with you is just a few of those instructional models or methods, because I shared with you some of the curriculum that we have. And now I just want to let you know what some of that really looks like in the classroom. So acceleration, I always tell parents, acceleration is like one wheel on the bus for gifted child. The bus will not go without it. These gifted students need acceleration, but they need more than just acceleration. And so I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what they do need. They need extensions of the regular curriculum so that they can dive more deeply into it. But they do need a faster presentation. They need less repetition. They need to demonstrate that they have mastered or know something before it's being taught. And that's why we do a lot of pre-testing to demonstrate, so that students can demonstrate that mastery, so we can document, the teachers can document that mastery, and so we can move them on to more exciting, stimulating, and material that extends some of those standards. Flexible grouping, I mentioned before, and that's a way that we group students based on their needs, and it could be within a classroom. Sometimes it's within a grade level or even beyond a grade level. So we want to make sure that we are challenging students and keeping them engaged in innovative, creative, exciting learning opportunities. And by allowing them to continually flexibly group, we're able to do that a lot more readily than as if we had this one group of students and said, here's your curriculum, turn to chapter 4, read these problems, answer these questions, and then move on to the next chapter. That's not how we do it in gifted. We want to make sure that we're figuring out where the kids are, what they know, and how to move them forward. And a big part of that is through curriculum compacting. Think about a trash compactor. What does it do? It compacts the trash to make room for more trash, right? Well, curriculum compacting is the same concept. We know that these kids don't need to spend as much time learning new material as others, so we compact that curriculum into short amounts of time or short amounts of material, or both, meaning they might not need to do 25 problems a night when they can do the 5 most difficult, demonstrate that they've got that, and then go into more. One example of curriculum compacting that we use in our self-contained gifted program. A huge element in our self-contained gifted is critical thinking and enriching the content. And by this, we embed questioning strategies that emphasize critical thinking, creative problem solving, depth and complexity. That's how gifted kids' brains work. And that's how they get excited about their learning. They ask a lot of questions. As parents of gifted children, I'm sure that you've experienced that as well. Well, we know in gifted that that's how they learn, that's how they thrive. And we want to encourage questioning and that critical thinking. And once again, that's very different than a standard curriculum. So those are some basically outline of some of our gifted curriculum and instruction. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the application process. So our self-contained gifted program for elementary is basically grades 1 through 6. And those applications, along with the DLC, the journey applications, open up very shortly next week on October 5th. And in those, on October 5th, it's going to be open just for the students that reside within the boundaries of that school they're applying for. So for example, if you reside in North Ranch boundaries and you know you want your child to go to the North Ranch self-contained gifted program, you will be able to put in your application October 5th. But if somebody else lives in, for example, Scottsdale or a different school district, even within our boundaries, they have to wait till November 2nd. So that means that that we open it up 1 month prior to the families that reside within your boundaries in order so that you have a better opportunity to attend your home school without losing that opportunity. So typically we're able to accommodate those. One thing I need to tell you about the application process is that you're applying to the self-contained gifted program, period. You're not applying to the North Ranch self-contained program or the Fireside self-contained. The application will say self-contained gifted program, first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, fifth choice. And that your preferred, you want to select your preferred choices there. I'm not sure if I had a picture of that there. Because if, for example, your first choice is not available at that moment, you might be on a waiting list. And say your child is second on the waiting list. And when a space in that program opens up, then we will call you and say, a space just opened up. Would you like to move from wherever your child is at to this location? So for example, I'm using North Ranch as an example. Say your child is living in North Ranch boundaries, but there was no space in a certain class that he signed up, that he registered for, and he had to attend Desert Trails instead. So after the first month, something opens up in North Ranch, we will call you and say, do you want to leave Trails and go to North Ranch? A place just opened up. I have to tell you, about 9 out of 10 times the families get so in love with their teachers at their second choice that they don't end up wanting to move to their first choice. We have some amazing teachers, but that's the way that works. And you'll see that on the application once you go through that. The application dates for the self-contained kinder are going to be starting later, January 4th, for those that reside within the boundaries of your homeschool, and open up February 1st for those that reside outside the boundaries of the homeschool. And the gifted preschool applications are a little bit different in that the homeschool really doesn't come into play as much. All the students will register for this gifted preschool on February 1st for that. So you've got time to get tested for your children that are in the kinder and preschool. Well, you have time to get tested for all of our self-contained programs, because we haven't started testing yet because we don't have the kids face to face. But I'm going to be talking about the testing in just a minute. On the application, which is now online, let's see if I have yes, I'm going to show you where it is. On the application, which is now online, you're going to be asked to submit these documents. The gifted testing scores. Now, if we tested your child and you say, I don't have them, you tested my child, then we can pull them for you. But a lot of kids get tested by the private testing, or were tested in another state or district prior to coming to PV. So you'll just need to send those test scores to my office, the gifted ed office, not to the school, but to the gifted ed office along with the application. There is a student self-evaluation, and that's just so that we can get an idea about how the child perceives learning and their outlook on school. And the most recent report card and AZ merit scores for grade students that have them, grades 4 through up. Now, you're obviously thinking, some of you, we didn't have AZ merit last year. No, you did not. So you would submit whatever scores you have, the most recent of the AZ merit scores that you have. And if you come from another state and you didn't have AZ merit, you would submit whatever standardized test score your state or district was using at the time. Obviously, K3 does not have that. So we just look at report card for that. There's also going to be a teacher evaluation. That's not something that you need to submit. Once you submit the application, that links, we will get that directly from the teacher. And Deanna Shaverdian, once again, I'm going to show you her contact information at the end. She is the one that you're going to contact with any questions about any of these documents that you need for testing. Deanna put these slides together, so she'll be able to walk you through it when you call her. But on the Gifted website, she shows you an arrow here where the application is, and that's, see our Gifted programs and the different links. That is where you will find the application forms for all of our self-contained Gifted programs. They're all online now. They're all super easy to do. They're in survey format, so you don't even have to print anything. You can just upload your documents and we will get them, and we will reach out to you if we've got questions based on, or if we find that your application is incomplete. Once you go to this link where it says application, you're going to then see these. I'm going to see if I can move this a little bit. Sorry about that. So that you can see the different applications that we have for the self-contained in the recommendation, the parent recommendation, the teacher recommendation forms, and the other self-contained forms. All of those forms and the recommendation links are right there on the Gifted website, along with our phone number here to call if you have questions about that. Deanna and Phaedria have made this super, super easy. So, and it's very intuitive. So what you should be able to find everything you need right from that website. But like I said, feel free to call if not. So you might be wondering, okay, why are we talking about this right now? It is barely October and we're not even starting school yet, face-to-face. Well, we will be very shortly. And the reason we're having this on right now is because, yes, it is looking forward for next year, but our Gifted self-contained application process always opens the beginning of October. And so I wanted to share some of this information because typically I would do it face-to-face at a parent meeting, or I would be talking, and I should say, I'd be talking about it at the quarterly tours that Elizabeth and I hold at the self-contained Gifted program sites. Since we're not able to do that, we're bringing that to you. And yes, it's not too early to start thinking about next year. And so I want to share with you some of the numbers. Here is the abbreviation for each school: Desert Cove, Desert Trails, Fireside, North Ranch, and Sonoran Sky. You will see that at Sonoran Sky and Desert Cove, there is not a preschool listed. Those do not have the preschool there for this year, and for the kinder, they don't at Cove. But the numbers for the projected availability for these for next year are here. And if we have the need to open up an additional site, we will do that. That's what we do. We open up additional sites when we have the need and the interest in enough people applying. As of right now, this means that there's 16 spots in the 1-2 program class at Desert Cove, 14 at the Trails. At Fireside, there's 25 there, 17 and 11. The reason I wanted to share this with you is so that you can see these numbers matriculate up. So the kids that are in the Trails program at 1-2 this year, the second graders will go into the third grade, and the first graders will remain in the second grade. The kids that are in the at North Ranch in the 3-4 class, the fourth graders will move on to the fifth grade, to the 5-6 class, and that's how we matriculate up. You do not need to reapply. Once you are in the program, you are automatically reserved a space in next year's program, in next year's at your site. If you want to change sites, then you just go onto that application, submit just the cover sheet that says you want to transfer to a different site. And once again, Phaedria can help walk you through that if you have questions. But on our website, there is a link that tells you if you want to transfer from one site, self-contained site, to another, here's the information how to do that. So we do have that information listed there for you. A couple notes too, and it's really, really important because we've had some issues in the past where parents have thought that they applied, but their application was not complete. So it was on hold. So please make sure your application is complete. That means you can't, if we don't have the teacher recommendation, we can't evaluate it. If we don't have the test records or we can't evaluate it, because those are all evaluated using a rubric with the different components of the pieces that make the application for each of the different programs. So we do need it completed. If you're not sure, if you submit and you're not sure if your application is completed, that's not a problem. Just call my office and we are happily let you know which pieces are missing. You should, after you submit the application online, check your spam folder because we have seen that some people's confirmation email is going to a spam folder, and it should be pretty obvious once it's there. Another important note here is if you are, say you reside in Desert Trails boundaries and you apply October 5th, those applications will be held for the month of October and evaluated the 1st of November. All of the applications that are accepted during the month of November will be reviewed the beginning of December. So it does not matter when in October you submit your application or when during the month that you submit it. As long as you submit it in that month, it will be reviewed in a batch with all the other applications that were submitted to be reviewed with that batch in the first days of the coming month. Seats cannot be held during the application process. And by this, I mean, if you say, turn in the application, you say, I have everything ready except for the test scores because the testing date is too far out. I don't have that yet. We can't hold it. We can only review complete applications because we won't know if the child qualifies. And by then we might be keeping somebody else out of the program who had qualified already. Once again, questions about that, just call my office. And here are the lovely ladies that you would be talking to. Phaedria Begay is my assistant, my admin assistant, like I told you. She oversees all of the self-contained gifted applications for K through 8. And Deanna Shaverdian, she is our data technician, and she oversees the gifted testing and the gifted preschool applications. Now, gifted testing, Deanna is working on the schedule right now. We were obliged to only test once the students returned to school for face-to-face learning when all of the protocols are in place for in-person interactions and learning. And so we've had a couple little tiny here and there, but our testing schedule is coming up. It will be posted on our Gifted Ed website. And I would like to Deanna will have that posted for you, but she can also answer questions. If you've got some specific questions like my child has an IEP or a 504, what's testing going to look like that? We will have special testing accommodations just for those children, and but that do follow the procedures that are defined by the state of Arizona, and as far as the accommodations for that. Okay, so that concludes my part of the presentation. I'm going to now, I think, open this up
I'm
because
here.
Melissa hopefully has collected some questions that I might be able to answer a few of.
We have a couple of questions, a couple more minutes left here. If anybody else has any questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat. I have the chat box open. So one of the first questions was, when will testing resume? So you kind of covered that there. And just a reminder for folks to watch that district website. And if you will also let me know when testing has started back up, I can post that on our UPC, and we can also post it. I started another Facebook group called Gifted Parents of Gifted Students in PV, I believe it's Parents of Gifted Students. So there's another parent group out there, and we can certainly post that on that site.
And we will
did get a question about, go ahead.
We will definitely get that posted as soon as possible. I know that a lot of people are anxious and have been waiting for a very long time. And I know that none of us are responsible for the pandemic that we're in right now, but I do feel for you understand that we're trying to get that testing. So we've streamlined the testing process to make it much, much faster than it was last year by digitizing everything. So we should be able to get your kids tested as soon as possible.
That's wonderful to hear. I know that's very helpful for those wanting that testing to go through quickly. One of the other questions came up on the new elementary 33 school. For those that don't know, that's the new PV school that is being built up in the, I think it's called Sky Crossing area. And they wanted to know will there be any self-contained gifted programs there? Obviously, we know that the cluster and content replacement will be there, but do we know if self-contained gifted will be there?
That is a very good question. I'm kind of wondering myself, to tell you the truth. So no, we don't know yet, but if you are interested in that, please let us know, because I can advocate for that expansion if there is that need. I'm anticipating that there will be that need. So I've already put it in my mind to put that proposal forward. But once again, just give us a shout out if that's what you're looking for, so I can better gauge that.
That would be great. Yeah, please communicate with the gifted department if you are one of the parents that is scheduled to have children go into that specific new school. The boundaries have been set. So if you live in that boundary zone, please share that information with the gifted department. Another question just came in that said, once a child is tested and identified as gifted, are they ever retested, or is there any need to retest as they get older?
That is a great question, and I'm really glad that you asked. We never ungift a child, okay? By that, I mean we never remove the gifted identification, and that's for a very good reason. There are no false positives on gifted testing. In other words, there's constructs built in where you cannot guess your way through and all of a sudden guess your way into getting that gifted identification. It simply isn't the case. If your child is identified as gifted and they're not working to that gifted potential, that's our responsibility. That's what we need to do. We need to work with the child's teacher, look at the different programming to try to help make sure that the children are working up to their potential. However, if your child is, say, in a gifted cluster or content replacement, and they have a score of 99, and they have another score of 92 and another one of 88, and you think your child really needs something more than the regular gifted program, that they're participating in because they've made a lot of leaps and growth in their academics. If you want to have them retested, we're going to retest them only in the areas in which they're not already identified. So for that example that I just gave, the area in verbal, say it was a 99, we're only going to go ahead and test them in the verb and the nonverbal and quantitative, because those are the two areas that they didn't identify in already. And so we can see if we can get one of those scores up to a 97 so that they might qualify to apply for the self-contained gifted program if that's what you think that they need.
Let me go ahead and add to that, because somebody just added a question that might just flow right into that. In your presentation, you mentioned students who have scored might still not qualify for self-contained. Could you please elaborate what is the other criteria?
Yes, when you saw that application process, you saw, first of all, the gifted test scores. And for gifted self-contained, we need a 97, 98, or 99 in at least 2 areas, usually as verbal and quantitative, with the third one in the nonverbal area or the third area in the 90s. The vast majority of our students in the self-contained have all 3 scores. And that's because most of them are radically accelerated. If your child has 99, 99, 99, but they're working at grade level, this is not the program. They will really have a challenge in it. I would recommend, if they're at grade level, going into the regular gifted program, which would be the cluster or the content replacement, working through that with the teachers. And then when they develop signs that they need more challenge than that, that's when they then apply for the self-contained gifted program. The report card is important because, once again, remember, we're working at 2 grade levels beyond at least. So a second grader is looking at 4th grade standards. If it's a 3-4 classroom, the child is in a classroom looking at 5th and 6th grade standards. If they're at a 3rd grade and they're working at 3rd grade level or 4th grade level, and we jump them into 5th grade standards, that means they have just missed and they have severe gaps in their learning, and they will not flourish or be able to really make progress at that highly accelerated level. However, there's many gifted students out there, as we well know, who have those scores and also need the much faster pace. So that's what that is going to be about. The other thing that we ask for there is a teacher and a recommendation. And that's because we want to see what kind of connections. You saw one of those first slides that I put up, what does general ability mean? How do they make connections between ideas, information, make inferences, see relationships, all those types of things. That's how the gifted self-contained program is developed, so that they have a lot of these kids have a lot of background in certain areas, they do a lot of research or reading or study or something of the area of interest. They're going to bring a lot of outside information to that learning objective, that content, that subject area. And so a lot of highly gifted students do that. They bring a lot of background information. And so that's another way that you would know that if your child is really needs something more than the regular gifted program. But if you're not sure, go through our Gifted Ed website right here, and there's descriptions of each of those models, each of those programs. The reason that we're focusing on this one right now is because this is the one whose application opens right now for next year. And remember, if your child has a gifted identification, they are already automatically placed into the gifted cluster classroom with a gifted cluster teacher, and content replacement for honors classes with the gifted specialist at every site, because their name just populates onto the roster through our student information system.
Great.
But
and
other questions
share,
about our
okay.
program, so just check out our website. Lots of information there.
And we've got one more question, but I was just also going to share, Dina, I just realized as you were talking, I've actually had students, both my children have participated in every single one of the programs that you offer, because they started in the cluster because North Ranch did not have the self-contained. So I was a part of that first transition to the new self-contained at North Ranch, 7 7
And I'm
years ago,
glad you
something
said
like
that
that.
because a lot of questions some of you might have also is, what if I started the self-contained and I realized, oops, wrong place, my child doesn't need this level of rigor. Can they go into cluster? Absolutely. And then they can come back to self-contained when they find they need it. We have kids going back and forth into these programs all the time. There's no stigma, there's no failing, there's no, oh, you couldn't cut it. It's just not what they need at that time. And the same thing is for the cluster. Say your child with the 3 scores is really, you think, oh, they're not really accelerated yet. They're going to be in cluster or content replacement. You're in that for a half a semester or half a year, and you realize, oops, I need something different. Then you just contact us. We will get you the application, and then we will evaluate that. And if there's space in your first choice, you'll be automatically placed. And if not, your second choice.
Well, and I would encourage parents, if you're parents of students, younger students and those new to this gifted designation, if you will, I would recommend you go look at the either the Facebook page or the PVUPC YouTube, because we have so many presentations that we have recorded over the last 3 or 4 years working with the gifted department. We've had some amazing psychologists come on, talk about being a parent of a gifted student and how that impacts your relationship with your child, how, skills and tools that we can learn as parents and working with the schools. So there's some great programs out there.
And it also,
we do have, yep.
There'll also be videos that talk about how gifted children learn, how we train our teachers. What does IQ mean as far as social emotional needs? How to help your child feel good about themselves if they feel different than others. So there's a lot that are really impact the AFAC, the affective concerns that gifted students have. So I really appreciate UPC keeping those up, because when parents call me, I can refer them right to it, and then they can call back with other questions. But the other thing I wanted to remind you of is these ladies, they're great resources. So after you've gone through our website for the application processes for these, and you still have more questions, go ahead and give them a call. They're happy to help. And once again, please check back, and Melissa will, if you're here, you will get our emails from UPC Gifted collaboration about some of our upcoming parent nights and presentations and some of the expert speakers we're going to bring into you. So thank you.
So we have 2 quick questions.
Okay.
We've got 2 quick questions I'm going to finish with. One is, the same test results apply to all gifted programs for eligibility. And actually, I actually know that that's not actually true when we start looking at our middle school. So I'll let you finish answering the eligibility for some of the classes.
Well, like I said, there's different criteria for each of the self-contained programs.
Yeah.
For preschool, you only need 1 score at 90 or above. Why? Because it's really hard to accurately test a 3-year-old. But we're going to be talking about the early childhood at the other presentation. For the self-contained kinder, you need a 97 in one area. From the self-contained kinder, half of the kids will go into the self-contained gifted elementary, grades 1 through 6, and about half will go into the cluster. Once again, whatever the children need. The journey and the DLC have slightly different. They need 2 areas. But all of those criteria are listed on the applications on our gifted website. And next week is the DLC. And we're going to be talking about that application process, the criteria, what the day looks like, what that program looks like with the teachers who are amazing. And then the week after, we'll have the application process for Journey, because that's our other self-contained. And then following that, we'll have the early childhood. Was there one last question?
All right, we're going to, yes, there is one final question. It makes sense that we end on this, because as we transition to schools reopening, we do know parents are keeping kids at home, and that's why TV Connect was left working and there. So for those parents on TV Connect, they want to know how they can bring their students in for testing.
Oh, not a problem whatsoever. As long as you reside in our district or attend our schools, we can test you. So once again, you'll have, contact the gifted specialist. Every elementary school has a gifted specialist. The gifted specialist works with Deanna to make sure that we know all the kids, all the families in that school who are going to need testing. So you would probably bring the child in for testing during the time that the school is testing. But good question. And we will make sure that we address some of those questions. One final thing I want to bring out, because that question just reminded me of, our self-contained gifted program will continue just like all the other classrooms. Our content replacement, our cluster will continue through PV Connect, like all the other programs. And we also have self-contained only 3, 4, and 5, 6 that doesn't have the Connect part available. If you don't think the Connect is working for you, but you want distance learning, we have a straight self-contained 3, 4, and 5, 6 available as well. So on the application, you can just go ahead and select that or call my office and ask about that. Any other questions that come up after tonight or when you're viewing this video later on, please do not hesitate to reach out to either Melissa or myself through my office, and we will be happy to help you get your questions answered and get your kids registered.
Great job. Thank you, Dina, again, for such a wonderful presentation. Everyone, thank you for joining us. We will be posting this on our YouTube because the Facebook would not go to live tonight. So we were not able to get onto our Facebook site.
And thank you for your interest in our gifted programs. And let your friends in other districts know that we welcome kids from all over the valley into our gifted programs. Have a good evening and good start of the face-to-face school year.
Thank you so much. Good night, folks.
Bye. Okay.